kids, it's me, Kevin Smith. Have you gotten your Chronicon tickets yet, man? It's coming up. It's in October. It's in Chicago, the very first ever IRL, in real life, as the kids used to say on the internet. Chronicon, man. Me and a host of guests from the Viewisk universe and whatnot. Merchants, vending things, signings, photos, panels, script readings. It's going to be an amazing time. Chronicon from Jane Silent Bob Reboot comes to life. Chicago, October 11th, 12th, and 13th. Tickets available right now at csmod.com. Hey kids, me Kevin Smith, and I went to see Deadpool and Wolverine, man. Got these popcorn buckets. I went to see it at the Landmark over in the Sunset Plaza. It used to be the Lemley Sunset 5. Clerks played their midnight shows on Friday and Saturday for like 1 year straight. So now it was an AMC, and now it's a Landmark. And Ryan James, a friend of mine, works there. And so him and the manager of the joint gave me popcorn buckets after the movie was done. Me and Jen went, my wife, yesterday, 3 o'clock show on Thursday, first show we could possibly see it. I own my own movie theater in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey, Smodcastle Cinemas, where it's playing right now and where we're doing a sold-out screening on my birthday, August 2nd. But I'm here in Los Angeles, so I couldn't get back. You know, I couldn't fly just to go see it. I paid the money and went and saw it locally. And because of that, I got this shit. Okay. What I bought, what I thought. Well, you know what? I'll tell you. Remind me to tell you who I sat next to in the same aisle with watching the movie and met before the movie began. I'll close with that. Let's just lead with the important stuff. When from the moment we all saw that Deadpool footage that somebody leaked on the internet years ago, which everyone maintains is probably Ryan Reynolds, but whatever. Man, oh man, have we been stoked for this. The comic book superhero that takes down other comic book superheroes, deconstructs them, and has a good time with them. Comedy, the superhero comedy, the comic book movie comedy to end all comedies. And it was R-rated. And Ryan Reynolds absolutely delivered in a big bad way. And, he'd always been a movie star for years, but this took him to a different level altogether. Deadpool was a discovery for mainstream culture. He'd been a comic book favorite for years, thanks to Rob Liefeld. But then authors that came after Rob who kind of turned him into the merc with a mouth. But, Ryan Reynolds saw something in that character early on, got to play a version of that character in one of the Wolverine movies, one of the many X-Men Wolverine movies. And, but didn't get to wear the costume, and they sewed his mouth closed. Just weird decisions made with that character. And he never, that was my slippers, man. That wasn't me farting. He was, of course, like, man, there's got to be a better way. This character is so much cooler. And financed that mini shoot that demonstrated what Deadpool could be, and here we are. Deadpool, the first one and the second one, were absolutely wonderful. They're funny as fuck. Like, and as somebody who purports to do comedy for a living, I doff my cap all the time. Ryan Reynolds' delivery is pitch perfect combination of Chevy Chase-isms. There's a moment in the movie where in Deadpool Wolverine where he's got the dog pool, and the dog pool's licking his face, and he's kind of like licking him back. Total fucking Chevy Chase move. His timing is impeccable. And the fact that he's Canadian has always made it more delightful for me as a big Canada-phile. So I loved the first two Deadpool movies. I had high hopes going in for this Deadpool movie. Marvel has had a tough go of it as of late, with a bunch of people being like, it's over, it sucks. So, when Deadpool introduced himself in the trailer as Marvel Jesus, once again, their finger was on the pulse. The jokes were timely as fuck, as they knew that they were losing the audience and whatnot. And the hope was, oh, Birdie chiming in. The hope was that there's a little German Shepherd. The hope was that, oh my God, this movie will, right the ship, so to speak, bring people back. And it took a long time after the Fox, Disney's purchase of Fox, for them to figure out how they were going to incorporate an R-rated Deadpool into their plans. But why would you ever even leave them behind? Both of those movies made so much money, and they're fucking good. So, bam, it took a minute, but suddenly they started talking about, hey man, this movie's going to happen. And it promised, the bits and pieces we heard over the last year, 2 years, that started coalescing, when they started shooting, seeing Hugh Jackman come back, put on like the yellow suit that he never wore in the movies, and then the promises of perhaps the first cinematic appearance of the classic Cal. Everything felt right. Everything felt like this, man, they may be able to stick the landing here. Like, fucking, the timing is right. Everything looking good. And then the trailers they put out, the teasers and the trailers. And then, of course, those movies have been hilarious, but they've also had a kind of earnest, sincere through line. Lots of laughs and some heart as well. In the previous two Deadpool movies, mostly predicated on his relationship with Vanessa. And is it Vanessa? I think it's Vanessa. This flick no different, but less so. More about like, hey, my friends in general. So there's always been like something to hold on to beyond like the jokes, whether they're funny or dirty funny or whatever the fuck. And this once again, it's my slipper. Dude, I swear it's my slipper. This is no different. My lord, lots of emotion in this. Ultimately, this is a movie kind of about, forgotten heroes to some degree. I'm a guy who's made a bunch of movies that, I've made 16. The 16th movie is coming out in September. It's called the 4:30 movie. We're going to show the trailer at Comic-Con. Not like it's going to matter because we're following the Marvel trail panel, and who knows what the fuck they're going to show. I just saw them do a drone show online with Galactus. Like, you can't beat them. But I will be on stage after them for my panel, closing out Saturday night, showing the trailer for my 16th film. So in any event, I say this because I've made films that have done well, and I've made films that have not been received well at all. And, it's always kind of like, oh man, I love those movies. You love them all equally. And the ones that, the audience doesn't meet you on, you have to develop a weird relationship with right away. It's, I've referred to it as like, if you know your Bible, when they arrested Jesus, all the apostles go scatter. And they're like, what? I don't know that guy. When a movie flops, but when you're making a movie, it's like, oh my God, this is the best. We'll always be united. And it's like going to camp and like, we'll be friends forever. Then when the movie flops, people just scatter, disappear like fucking, like, the apostles after Christ is arrested. And, it takes a while for everyone to kind of poke their heads back out and be like, is everything okay? Because nobody wants to be near a bomb when it explodes. So in this movie, you've got a few movies, characters, cameos from other movies, comic book movies of the past, that were doing, the heavy lifting before the Marvel Cinematic Universe came along and kind of perfected it. But, some of those movies weren't met with the greatest box office success. Every movie is somebody's favorite movie, but like, Elektra wasn't as well received as, say, Spider-Man Homecoming. Let's leave it at that. So watching, those movies pop up within this movie, in Deadpool and Wolverine, and get, kind of like a respectful final bow not redemption, so to speak, but like, hey, we remember you, we see you, and thank you. You held down the fort of comic book fandom in cinema until, you know, the big guns arrived, and you will not be forgotten. And there's a wonderful montage at the end of the movie. Like, it gets you emotional to that, you know, Green Day song. I hope you had the time of your life, with a bunch of behind the scenes footage of the Fox films, of all the Fox, you know, superhero movies, Fox Marvel films, rather, I should say. Um, so the movie, while being funny as fuck, and while, you know, essentially its job is to bring Deadpool into the Marvel universe, a Disney movie, you know, underneath it all, underneath the hood, one of the beating heart of the movie is, let's not forget the ones that, you know, didn't get all the love and shit like that, but did the job of being a comic book movie when we didn't have as many options, when it wasn't as respected, when, you know, before Marvel came along, Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, you know, I'm sure spoilers if you haven't seen the movie yet, obviously, because we're going to get in the nitty gritty. Seeing Elektra show up, you know, and Jen Garner rocking a fucking wonderful Daredevil joke. Seeing Wesley Snipes show up when all conventional wisdom, you know, based on what we'd heard about the making of the Blade movie that Ryan Reynolds was in years ago, Blade 3 or whatever, that things did not go well. Seeing Wesley Snipes show up was like, on so many levels, not just like, it's Blade, finally, Blade in a movie again, but like, I thought they didn't like each other. That Ryan Reynolds is a miracle maker. You know, seeing um, other people, I don't want to go too deep on the spoilers, but come on, who's not going to see this movie? Fast. Seeing people who we know very well as superheroes from another movie show up in their earlier incarnations from another iteration of comic book movie was absolutely fucking delightful. So on that level of just like, hey man, here's a shout out for the ones that didn't do so good. I have nothing to do with these movies whatsoever, but every film you see goes through a personal filter at the end of the day, right? And like how it affects you and your life and blah, blah, blah. So while this movie has nothing to do with me, just their acknowledgement of the ones who went before that maybe weren't as successful. I got to be honest with you, I felt a little seen as a guy who makes movies that weren't as successful and stuff. So I thought that was really touching. But hysterical. The movie's absolutely hysterical. Thank God Hugh Jackman came back. I know there's some people like, no, man, Logan was a perfect ending. It is and remains so, because this story, while it does, you know, go touch on that story, there are Wolverine in this movie isn't predicated necessarily on that Wolverine, thanks to the multiverse. You know, I watching Ryan Reynolds' dream come true in terms of like, oh my God, him top lining a movie with fucking Wolverine, with Hugh Jackman Wolverine, is delightful. And all the jokes are fantastic. I mean, even the ones that just kind of thud, they're swinging for the fences each and every time. And the self awareness is absolutely delightful. One of my favorite like moments is there's a Deadpool that is Ryan Reynolds, as they all are, I would imagine, and a variant, but he doesn't wear a mask and he looks like fucking fresh faced young Ryan Reynolds. And he's like, "Look, I can gently touch the fourth wall too." And he turns to the camera and he goes, "The proposal," and then just turns back. Made me laugh so fucking hard, man. The movie's absolutely fucking excellent, and I say this as a comic book fan. Sean Levy you know, the writers Rhett and Reese and Brett. And I can't. And Zeb Wells is in there, I think, and Ryan and Reynolds and Sean. I think those are the writing credits. Like there are moments in the movie where, like, not just like, hey man, I've been rewarded because I've been watching these movies for a long time. They did a fucking X-Men cover with Wolverine, a very famous X-Men cover, which was like, oh my God. Like, there's a lot of fan service in this movie, to say the absolute least. Not the least of which is, of course, the moment the mask goes on. I applauded. I was the only one in my theater, but it wasn't a packed theater. It was an early show. But I could not, I couldn't contain myself. I was like, yeah. Um, when he reaches back, it's spoilers in case you don't want to know when it happens if you haven't seen it yet. You've seen the shot in the trailer a zillion times when they slow mo walk out in front of that store, the Rob Liefeld's feet store. The next thing that happens is he reaches back Wolverine and pulls up his cowl and puts it on, and it's I'm 53, I'm gonna be 54 next week, man, and I guess yes, I'm a fucking man child and never really had to do anything remotely masculine or anything like that because I entered the entertainment business. I'm a soft boy kid, total soft boy. You've seen me cry on the internet for fucking whatever this, for Flash, for Black Panther 2, what have you. So it's not that I take this shit seriously. I just love this shit because I grew up with this shit, and now, as an old man, I get a second bite at the apple. I used to read these stories, and now here we are watching them play out. That's why I've always loved the Marvel Cinematic Universe, man. I was like, oh wow, it's like I get to do it all over again, and you don't really get that opportunity. You rarely get a chance to read your first comic twice, and this was has been the next best thing. And plus, this just appeals to me. Always has. Superhero stories appeal to me. I was raised a Catholic kid, so I like good versus evil and shit. But it's not so much like yay defeat evil as much as I love comic book stories, as I've said many times, and comic book movies for the same thing. Like, it's generally the story of the worst thing in the world ever happening, and everybody's wisely running from it, except for one person or a few of them, very colorfully dressed. That to me is the root of the heroic tale, the super heroic tale. So even though I'm a grown man, seeing him pull up that cowl just did shit for me. With the white eyes, just like Deadpool got the white eyes and whatnot. So fantastic. It's everything you hope it's going to be. It's not like, oh, it's the third time out, it's getting a little long in the tooth. Like, not at all. Good times to be had at Deadpool Wolverine, hands down. I mean, this ain't going to say much, but best comic book movie of the year. There haven't been that many. That's the point. But I'd venture to say one of the 10 best comic book movies ever made, easily. Important too, in as much as I was there with somebody who's only as well versed in the stuff because of what I say, or what I'm like, hey man, let me explain shit to you. I'm like the living embodiment of that meme of the guy who's yelling at the girl, or vice versa, of like, okay, so what this means is, but she needed no explaining throughout the movie. Like at one point, I explained the Wesley Snipes thing. I was like, he was in Blade 3 and they didn't like each other. That was it. They've done a good job at educating the public on all these things that used to be real inside and belong just to comic book fans. So anybody can access this fucking movie. And it's an absolute fucking delight. You just smile from the top to the fucking bottom. Before I went it, I went to see it. I told you, at the Landmark in the Lemley, what used to be the Lemley Sunset 5. And so as I'm waiting we got some snacks, got like popcorn. Jen was getting some topping on it and shit. So I was standing by the side waiting for her. And an older gentleman comes up to me and goes, Kevin, hello, Randall Kleiser. Now, for the uninitiated, Randall Kleiser is a legendary director who shaped my childhood by directing Grease. He's the director of fucking Grease, kids, and the Blue Lagoon, and a host of other fucking movies. One of the Honey I Shrunks he had as well, or Blew Up, I forget which one. But Randall Kleiser, an absolute fucking legend. And so he introduced himself as, hey man, how are you? And then we wound up sitting in the same row watching the movie. And at one point in the movie, you're the one that I want. You are the one I want. Ooh, ooh, ooh. The Grease song plays. And I like leaned forward and looked down the aisle and I was like, oh! It was kind of delightful to see like this guy who was doing it when I was a kid, man, and like building memories and whatnot. And like Grease, sorry, garbage truck. Grease, for heaven's sakes, one of the biggest movies of all time. Still culturally relevant. I said to him after the movie, I was like, look at you, man. You made a movie that years later, they're still referencing it. He said, yes, in the scene with the best absolute cartoon violence. He was laughing all throughout the movie. He was absolutely enjoying himself, it sounded like. And you will too, kids. Who's not going to enjoy themselves? Deadpool Wolverine. Thanks to the folks at Landmark for giving me these. They didn't have the blowjob one, but beggars can't be choosers. It's playing right now, Deadpool Wolverine, kids. In a theater near you, of course. Also playing at Smodcastle Cinemas if you want to go see it at my movie theater. There it is. There's your review of Deadpool Wolverine, man. Fucking true delight. Get ready to feel things, kids. Not just like, ha, 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 but also, and that's important. All right, man. Bye. Ooh. This is the maquette. Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the AKA Ask Kev Anything.
Every saga has a 10-year anniversary, ladies and gentlemen, and this is what happens when Jay and Silent Bob get old. I'm Kevin Smith. Cheers, if you